Hello and welcome to The Dirt and the Divine. I'm Krisha Young, your host and executive growth strategist, author, and advocate for living a fully aligned and unapologetic life. This podcast is built on the philosophy that every beautiful life has its roots in both the messy and the magnificent. Here, we share raw and real stories from incredible individuals who faced life's toughest challenges head on, dug deep into their souls, and took radical personal responsibility for their lives. They didn't run or hide from their struggles. They explored their emotional landscapes, owned their experiences, and emerged authentically living in joy and alignment. Through these conversations, my hope is to inspire you to think, wow, if they could do this, if they went through all of this and found happiness, maybe I can too. This space is about embracing the journey, the dirt, and the divine, because together they shape a life worth living. Please note that this podcast is for general discussion only and is not a substitute for therapy, legal, or professional advice. Now let's get started. I'm very excited. We have a guest here today. Kathryn Malek is an international best-selling author, SOLignment Breath Facilitator, Shamanic Practitioner, and intuitive energy healer. Her transformative journey from self-doubt to self-love led her to discover the SOLignment breath process, which she calls the spiritual key to the kingdom of healing. I love that. Drawing from global wisdom traditions, Vipassana meditation, and mindfulness, Kathryn helps clients reconnect with their true selves. Her holistic approach empowers individuals to embrace their inner strength, inspiring profound healing and spiritual awakening. So today's episode, I'm really excited. The topic is, they said it was all in her head. Her body told a different story. Hey, Kathryn, how are you?
I'm amazing. Thank you, Krisha, and
I
thank you
love
for
that.
having me on as a guest.
Yes, you're so welcome. I love that answer. I just want to say, I am amazing is the best phrase, even if you're not amazing. You know what I mean? To just say that is just like you're putting something out there into the world that's just like, I'm amazing.
Absolutely. Like, imagine saying, like, I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm okay. Like, in my body already, I'm like, I'm okay. But
yeah,
I'm amazing.
I'm amazing.
Bring some
Right?
sparkle, bring that energy.
It's so true. It's so true. I actually just did a reel about this, so I agree. So Kathryn, thank you for being here and for opening it up with this amazingness. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into all of this amazing healing modalities, and then we'll dive into, this experience that you had.
Yeah, absolutely, Krisha. Let's start with perhaps how I got into this journey, and then I'll go into the story of was all in my head, but my body told a different story. First, I'll share that I was born into a family of healers, seers, and psychics. So, conversations around I saw this, I know this, I had a dream. As a child, this was completely normal for me. I did learn, though, out in the playground, that to talk about this or seeing people who had crossed over was not a thing to share. I would, get strange looks like I had a horn growing out. So I learned to conceal that. And like many, many incredible beings in our world, I grew up in what you would call a dysfunctional family. At age 11, my mother had passed away, and my father quickly remarried, wanting to find a mother, create a home for his children. And it didn't turn out that way. So there was a lot of trauma, wounds, emotional hurts that I took in as a young girl, teenager. So as I became an adult, I was wanting to heal. I didn't know a lot about healing and about the healing path, but somewhere in me, I believed it was possible. And it was an interesting time. I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, one of the coldest places. I know there are colder places in the world, but it's cold there.
Yeah, winter peg.
Winnipeg, it's affectionately known as. So in my late teen years, I had signed up with a modeling agency. And there was a gentleman that worked there. I remember him. His name was Stefan. That's all I remember about him. He was very open-hearted and very kind. And he told me about this book, You Can Heal Your Life. So went to the library and I'm reading this book. I took in as much as I could. I'm reading it. I'm not fully taking it, and I'm, a teenager learning. And as life carried on, I was involved in the arts. I became an actor, writer, director, and I always knew and felt something wasn't quite working for me. There was something off inside. I was having a lot of panic, anxiety, depression, and this would come and go. I was an actor. I could present and cover it up until I couldn't. There were times when I just couldn't, and it was finding its way through me. So along my path, I met with many healers, teachers, guides, shamans, courses and programs. And every few years, I'd be in a private session, and after whatever healing or whatever teaching was given, I would confess and say, something's not quite right. I feel like a horse who's been startled, and I feel scared. I feel scared right now. That's all in your mind. Everything is well. It's just in your mind. Okay. Okay. So half believing, I would think, okay, I'm going to think differently. And then another couple of years, I'm still dealing with the same things. I would be brave and I'd say it to someone else. Yeah, something's not quite right. I feel scared. It's your mindset. Yeah. Okay. And again, I'm beginning to disbelieve because I really feel deep in me, no, it's something else. It's something deeper. A few more times this happened in my life, spread out over the years. And I wasn't giving up. And I remember even being in a workshop, and they had these medals for us when we would get to the front of the room. We would say words like, we're powerful, we're a leader, all that. And I got through the course to get to that medal very quickly. I am an actor. I pulled the leader aside afterwards and said, I may feel this way right now in this moment, but what about tomorrow? Now they kindly said, well, it will grow. You'll see. It didn't really. There were words that weren't connected to me. Now, the good news is I did not give up. I eventually met Julia Mick, who's the founder of SOLignment Breath Process, the SOLignment Institute. When I met her, I somehow right away told her this. I'm not sure how, but divine meeting. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. I could read that in your mouth. Yeah. And so I met her at a big retreat. She was one of the presenters. And I remember her saying, I will be in the lobby the next day, the following day, come find me, anybody. She announced to the audience of 150 people. Well, I found her the next day, and I feel like I was like stalking her and following her around. And right away, because my opening line was, so when we breathe the way you're teaching, it calms the nervous system, it does this. And she's like, okay, where did this woman come from? She's talking nervous system, she's talking subconscious. And right away she says, come to my bigger retreat. You'll spend days doing this process with me. And of course, I told her the story about it's all in your mind. She looked at me and she said, it's not all in your mind. You're right. It's in your body. Now, first, to have someone validate and to believe me was incredible. I was in joy, ecstatic, and bliss, knowing that, yes, there is a path and there is a way to connect to this, to heal, to process, to release. And I just felt amazing that I had stuck to my own intuition on this. And while I listened to all the other coaches and guides, and I'll say, as I shared with you, Krisha, one only knows what they know. So while these other well-intentioned beings, they know about the mind. So they were sharing that with me, which was beautiful. And I learned so much. But what I was really seeking was the one that I met who understood it was a body, a somatic healing that I was looking for. I just didn't know the words. I didn't know that that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and I want to dive into this one here because first of all, thank you for sharing your story. It's
Of
fascinating
course.
too. Like growing up, I can't imagine what it would be like to grow up in an environment with people who had gifts and like were unapologetic about it. And meaning like that it was just so normal in your household to be like, have that knowing and have that ability. Um, of course, yes, like not everybody has that or is in tune with it, we should say,
Mhm.
is in tune with it.
Absolutely.
It's probably
Absolutely.
more correct.
Mhm.
And so yeah, there's ridicule that happens in school, and then and then you went on to have some trauma there with like losing your mom and things like that, that then brought you on this path, and I like what you were saying about like, and you said it a few times, I'm an actor, I'm an actor. And like I think we all are in one way, shape, or form, right? And the one thing you said about like and I'm going to paraphrase here, but it was basically like, I'm an actor, I can pretend that this thing doesn't exist, right? And I call that like whack-a-mole, right? So you're playing whack-a-mole with stuff, right? So it's like, oh, this thing pops up, and then you're like, nope, can't pop, and pop down, and then it's like, but then it comes out over here. So it's like it's coming out anyway, whether you want it to or not, you know what I mean? And so you might as well just face it and then get the healing that you need. But what I wanted to touch on is like our okay, I don't know how somatic to me is very known because I've been practicing this and coaching on this, and I use this as a modality in my own practice, and have done for many years. And it really was the somatic work, and I had like different versions of somatic, and we can talk about that in my own life that did enable me to unlock the stuff that I just wasn't getting anywhere with strictly mindset. And so you're familiar with it, I'm familiar with it, but um, you know, uh, every single client that I've worked with in the last few months, I'm like, do you know about somatic? And they're like, I've kind of heard of it, but I don't really know what it is. Or no, I'm not entirely sure what it is, right? And so it's a terminology or a word that's really not mainstream yet.
Not really.
Not really.
Not
And it
really.
should be. And it should
Well,
be.
but it will be.
It will
And it's
be. It's
speeding
getting
up
there.
very quickly because I know that when incredible beings are in my experiential SOLignment breath process workshops, these are 3 hours long, they get to experience it for themselves. I get approached afterwards and they'll say, this is what people need. This is incredible. This is, and they're over the moon. So,
And it's not snake oil either, it's
no,
like latest and greatest like phase or something like that. You know what I mean? Like this is really deep, important work. Um,
absolutely.
one of my mentors, Marla Mattinson, she has partnered up with the Polyvagal Institute.
Oh.
and does a really important polyvagal type training, right? Which is basically somatic work. It's basically in that category, right? Where it's like recognizing what you were describing as a skittish horse or feeling scared, right? I'm sure everybody can identify with that feeling, right? And so I don't know, well, why don't we ask whoever's watching if you, when you, the last time you felt scared, or if you can think of something that makes you feel scared, where do you feel that in your body?
Mm,
Right. And
absolutely.
people who are not, don't quite understand that yet, I
Mm,
find use a different kind of language to describe it. It's like very verbal of like, I think this, and it's more thoughts, right? Which is exactly in that mindset realm. And then it's like, yeah, but where do you feel it in your body? Right? Do you feel, and then so what, well, I'm going to speak for myself, and then I would love for you to explain how you would do this. But what I would say is like, okay, do you feel this in your chest? Do you feel it in your ears, in your throat, in your stomach? Like, do you feel like a tension? Do you feel fluttering? Do you feel like you're being stabbed? Like, what is the sensation that you're feeling? Does it feel heartburny? You know, does it feel tense? Like, what's the physical sensation that you're experiencing while you're thinking about feeling scared,
mhm,
right? And then there's an association made. And then once that association is made between the body and the mind, that now we're off to the races, I guess, on that horse. So, how would you walk somebody through like an initial sort of somatic introduction?
yeah. I have a lot of ways that I share and teach about the mind body connection. The first thing I'll say to anyone, SOLignment breath process, somatic alignment. We're going to put this and this connected. When this is all connected, everything is possible. It's like having pieces of the puzzle apart. Let's connect them.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've been very blessed to guide incredible radiant souls who I'm able to have them drop into their body with me in a resonance practice. So while I'm in a, and you'll understand what I'm saying, but maybe we'll explain a bit more. When I'm in a theta state, I generally kind of walk around the world like that most days. So when my clients are sitting with me, even on Zoom, um, within minutes, I would say some of them might start yawning, which is amazing. So I just guide and allow them to come with me and resonate. And what I like to do sometimes is share an example from me at that moment. I will say, I'll go to a place in my body, what it feels like, the temperature of it, the texture, really feeling into it and just staying into it and breathing. Um, yeah, I feel like because I'm so kinesthetic, my learning style of me, I mean, of course, when I'm sharing visual, audio, whatever, but I feel in this way, I just do it with the person.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kinesthetic too, you know, like
Of course.
show me, don't tell me kind of thing. And just for the listeners, if you're just listening, what we were referring to before with the two puzzle pieces is your mind and your body. That's what we were pointing at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
remember it's
it's
audio.
kind of, yeah, right. How do we do an audio with visual references, right?
Explain.
Exactly. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so you said something really important that I think needs to be just like let's bring out my little yellow highlighter, which I can't reach right now, of course, just as I'm trying to be cool. Yellow highlighter.
Highlighter.
Um the practice of getting physical with your clients, you know, and being there with them and how important that is.
Mhm.
And I think that what I get a lot from people is they love my energy, and I have a great energy, right? I get told that a lot. And I feel very safe. I feel very secure. People just like really feel that they can trust me. And that's by design because I do a lot behind the scenes to cultivate my own level of groundedness, and have done a lot of my own inner work to clear my traumas and my like skittish horse inside of me, and recognize where that comes from, where it is in my body. Okay, this is fear. I know that this is fear, and this is not intuition. Okay, what am I feeling scared about? Okay, then my mind is racing over something that is like maybe imagined or not actually here, or whatever, whatever. And then like getting myself back into my body and groundedness in there then enables me to hold space for someone else who might be in that state, right? It's like that oxygen mask, analogy when you're on an airplane, right? Like put your oxygen mask on first so that you can then have the oxygen to then be able to help someone else, right? And that's what you're referring to, I believe, when you're talking about like getting in there with someone, like you have been able to create spaciousness within your own nervous system to handle walking somebody else through that process within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Can
1,000% correct.
Okay, can you expand
Absolutely.
on
If
that?
if I was sitting in a space of panic, anxiety, I mean, for another time, I'm sure you and I could sit even on Zoom together. And if I was just sitting quietly, and I'm an actor, let's say that again. Let's say I presented to you like, ah, everything's great. And we sit, because you're sensitive as well, you would probably be picking up on, wait a minute, and you might start feeling that panic, the waves of it, right? Energy, we feel it. So when I'm working with clients just like yourself, I live a shamanic lifestyle. I am very aware of my own energy and self-care hygiene. So I
Mhm.
rest when I need rest. If I need 8, 10 hours of sleep one day, that's what I do. If I need to go walk to the lake, go walk, be with the trees, need to turn everything off, that comes first. It didn't come first in my life before. I was very much used to running and chasing things. And I know that in order to guide others, this is what I do so that I can be sitting in that place, just like you're sharing, that you have to be in that place of safe, open, grounded completely.
Yeah. And prioritizing self-care, non-negotiable, like it has to be there, especially when we've devoted our lives to helping support others. I think it's really important for healers to really take that very seriously.
Yeah, walk the talk,
Walk the
live
talk.
it.
Yeah.
And the proof is in the energy and in the interactions and the engagement. I mean, even if someone doesn't understand energy or maybe hasn't even had an energy healing session, we all feel it. People will
Hmm.
say they'll walk into a room and they might say, something's funny in here, or I don't like this space. Like
Right.
there's little subtle clues about energy. So whether someone realizes or not, they are noticing it on some level, some more than others.
Yeah, it's true. Unlike energy, also, if you're not in this space, um, it's like it has a whole other definition, you know, like energy being like, oh, I'm so tired, versus I had the energy to go to the gym today. That's not what we're talking about. Although they are somewhat associated, but
Connected.
yeah, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're
No.
talking about like that, the spidey sense, the gut feeling, the thing, like I don't know why I like this person, but I really like this person, or I don't know why I don't like this person, but I really don't like this person, or this room feels weird, or oh my God, this space feels amazing. That's
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to keep going with the somatic conversation because like I said, I think it's really important. So now we have somebody maybe listening who or watching who's had an experience similar to yours. So, like it's all in your head, right? Like it's a mindset thing. And I'll tell you, like in the early days when I did start on my entrepreneurial journey, and before I even knew anything about somatic stuff, it was just mindset work. And then I was like being told those things, it's all in your head, or it's just your mindset, it's just the way you're thinking, or whatever. And it took me a while as well to find practitioners. It was actually finding goddess flow that really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was doing like a lot of meditation, a lot of mindset work, a lot of visualizations, and mind, and very like almost nothing in my body, until I started doing goddess flow in Toronto, well, in Ajax actually. I had a girlfriend of mine. She was like, Krisha, we're going to this class on Thursday. She's like, dress sexy and don't ask any questions. And I'm like, what? What are we doing? And anyway, I was like really very uncomfortable. I didn't like it. It was like you're wanting me to move, you're wanting me to dance. Like there's no structure to this. Like it was very feminine flow.
Mm.
And it made me feel very, very, very uncomfortable. And then like fast forward like a couple of years and I was like, this is the best thing ever. And it just like really allowed me to be more in my body, especially as a woman, and to recognize like the sensuality and my sexuality. Like that was what like opened all of this up for me. And then it connected me into my intuition, which
Mm.
was already very powerful, but I kept shutting it down,
Sure.
right? And so then now I'm getting all these intuitive hits. Well, they were always there, but now I was getting them and following them and trusting them and listening to them. And whoa, I have a body, like holy cow, like what is this thing? you know? And then and then that led me eventually to understanding my nervous system and understanding I had like a really deep pattern of anxiety that I was living with for years and years and years and years from my own childhood trauma, anxious attachment in relationships, all sorts of stuff. And it was actually only just this past summer, 2024, that like I'd been doing so much inner child work as well, like trying to have a dialogue with that part of myself, that she answered me. She talked to me finally. She was like, "Hey, mom." And so like there was a lot of layers that needed to be worked on before I could really get to sort of like the root of the consistent sensation in my body that is my body's indicator of fear or like real or imagined, you know? And then it's like, okay, it lives in the same spot all the time with me, And so again, when we're dealing with somebody else, I know the difference between what's mine, what's theirs. And if I feel it anywhere else in my body, I'm like, okay, that's not mine, you know? Um, so let's talk more about this. Like let's talk
Yeah.
more
Well,
conversation.
I
Somatic.
want I want to share about a point that you brought up, and you were talking about the layers.
Mhm,
And right away,
mhm,
um, it brings me to how we heal in
mhm,
layers. And so we'll step back to the mindset work. So that's the first layer, really. As human beings, like that is a good place to start, whether it's talk therapy or just learning and understanding in the mind. Because I feel, I know I like to learn something and ask questions, and I'll learn it here and then bring it down. And so it is layer by layer. And exactly as you're describing, like you went to the goddess flow, you got invited, it invited you, you invited it into its life. Subconsciously, it got invited to you. And you're like, what's this? Ooh, you know? And I understand. I five rhythms dance. I was a ballet dancer for 17 years, growing up in ballet, right? And I went to five rhythms and I kind of stood there and everyone's moving and flowing and doing whatever. And I'm like, just standing there looking, going, what do I do? Like, don't you tell me what to do? tendu, plie, no, okay. And so it took a few times of going and realizing, oh my God, this is freedom. I can do whatever I want. I can move my body how I want. It's incredibly healing to move the body. We do it as kids. We run around, we play, we jump, but to do it as an adult, to reconnect to that joy is incredible. So I love hearing about how you got invited to Goddess Flow and that experience, and how healing was that?
So powerful. It was so powerful to recognize that I am a very sensual and sexual woman. And talk about whack-a-mole, that was something that I had been whacking down my whole life and felt so much shame around. And when I started to move my body in that kind of way, it was like, whoa, it was almost like the most natural thing. And the interesting thing was that people already saw me that way, but I didn't see myself as that way. So I thought I was like hiding it well, you know?
Isn't that interesting? The things we think we're hiding.
Yeah.
Like we hide the thing that is our genius, like the greatest thing, the things that people will love us for, but
Mhm.
we're ashamed about it. And so we
Yeah.
hide it. Isn't
Yeah.
that, and everyone knows and they're comfortable with it. We're
Yeah.
not. We don't know they know.
Yeah. Right. You can't see me. Can't see me.
I'm just standing here pretending it's not here.
I'm an actor.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We all are. This great stage of the world. And,
Yeah.
we had to survive. We had to put on a mask or a robe or something to
Yep.
survive a lot of the things in life. And, it's our strategies. And brilliant as children, we came up with these little strategies all on our own until we get to a place where I don't want to wear a mask or a robe anymore. I'm done with that. Right.
Yeah. And I think that this is what is also known, AKA the midlife crisis in a lot of people. Um, and there's like memes and jokes and all sorts of stuff about that. But at the end of the day, I do believe that, and that can start as early as in your 30s, you know,
Absolutely.
when you're just like, what is happening? I am not in agreement with what I've created for my own life. You know?
Absolutely. Or something like waking up. Maybe you have felt this before too. You wake up, maybe in the middle of the night or in the morning, and you're in tears. No
Mm.
reason, according to you. Like you're not connected to it, and you're like, why am I crying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time since that happened, but yes.
It's
Yeah.
usually at the beginning.
And what's that?
Usually at the beginning. Like I found, in my earlier years, I'd have that where I just felt sad and I just had tears coming up. And it was because, subconscious, whatever imprints I had, they wanted out. They wanted to come up.
Right. And so let's go back to the somatic conversation because that's your body talking to you, right? Tears, like, oh my God, they're so important, right?
Very important.
Right? It's like your body is trying to talk to you. Sickness, illness, aches, pains,
Mm,
depression, like all anxiety, like all of these things. It is
all
your
of
body
those
to
symptoms.
talk to you, right? And then we go to the mind, and then we might get prescriptions, or we might get told it's all in your head, or we might get told just go change your job or leave your relationship or whatever, or just like suck it up, buttercup, like we're told all these things, right? And then so that's the whack-a-mole. We stuff the thing down. And
Mm,
then like for me, there was a really long period of like deep depression, and I was high functioning in
mm,
my depression, still going to work and looking the part. But it was like as soon as I got home, I was like, huh. You
yeah.
would not hear me say fantastic about how I was feeling.
Yeah. Well, it's that having to function in the world and maybe not having the right people that you can speak to. I mean, speaking to a coworker, I mean, it's a little bit different now, I would say, than maybe 5, 10 years ago. But I feel that many beings felt they had to hide it. And
Yeah.
some still do. And until you have the right person that you feel safe, you can trust, who understands what you're talking about, there is something really amazing. I'm sure you had this in your journey too. When you meet the ones who get you, who know what you're talking about, and maybe they've experienced it or they know someone's experienced it so they can understand it. And it just feels so incredible to that mirror. And then one doesn't have to feel like they're crazy or like an alien, like they don't, like they're not like everyone else. Well, we're all unique and different. And when the healing is coming up, it comes up differently for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Presents in different ways, as you were sharing in the body, pains, illness, autoimmune, all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
different ways it shows up.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. So for anybody in the audience right now, if they're like, yeah, like I am feeling these things and I'm going to doctors or therapists or I'm going to other practitioners or something and nobody seems to really get it,
Mhm.
what would be your advice for them?
When you're in that situation where you really feel like no one's understanding, you're at a loss for that, it's somatic. It's not in the mind. Go to the body. So finding a practitioner, or it could even be if there's a therapist who practices somatics. There are some, I know some in Vancouver even that do that. Um, Finding someone who works somatically. You can work through the breath and do that. You could have embodiment experiences, somatic experiencing, but really finding that person you can connect to. Dive into the body. Absolutely. Even starting with moving the body. As you were saying, God is flow. For me, it was 5 rhythms dance. So getting into the body.
Yeah, and just to refer back to my mentor Marla, she with the polyvagal is also something to look at too, the vagus nerve, and what she talks about is when you are, let's say you're in fight or flight, because that's generally what's happening, right? You're in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whatever terminology you want to use.
Yeah,
That's our amygdala, like in our brain. That's our hindbrain. That's our amygdala. That is basically the command center for our nervous system. And then we have the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems within us. And our nervous system is connected to absolutely everything. So we can't get away, like we cannot get away from it. We don't
yeah.
want to,
Get away
right?
from it, and most are dysregulated.
Most are dysregulated. So what does this mean? Let's define some of these words. So dysregulated is when you are and I'm just giving my definition, but when you are okay. So a regulated nervous system is when you have a really nice balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic. So let's define what those two mean. So parasympathetic is rest, digest, and make babies. That's like the best way for you to remember that one, right? So it's like when you're chill,
Mhm.
after
Absolutely.
you had a beautiful orgasm, providing that it was a lovely lovemaking experience or self-pleasure experience, right? Um, when you are rested, when you are having a nap, when you've slept well, well, like when you're chill without substances, right?
Yes.
Rest, digest, and make babies. And the reason why they say that is because conception happens when you are in a more parasympathetic state, right? When you're chill,
Absolutely.
right? So that's your parasympathetic. Okay. Now we can't always be in that, right? So then there's distress and eustress, which is in our sympathetic nervous system. And distress is when we are like panicking, like we get into an accident or we're startled or like we have real life concerns happening, like we get a call from someone in the hospital, or like there's that acute sort of like um distress that can happen. And then there's chronic distress, which is like, oh my gosh, we're now dealing with something day after day after day, and this stress isn't going away. Like, could be a job, it could be taking care of a loved one, could be a relationship that's really unhealthy or whatever, right? Like there's things there, those two. And then there's eustress, EU stress, that is like you're on a roller coaster or you're jumping out of a plane, right?
Absolutely.
or you're getting on stage and you're about to speak, or you're getting on a podcast or whatever, where you're nervous, but it's like good, right? So a balanced nervous system is really something that is a nice balance between eustress
Mhm.
the rest to digest, right? But what we have dysregulated is the volume is way too high on the chronic and acute
Yeah.
stress. Yeah.
It is exhausting too. I mean, and that's where all the symptoms can start showing up too. And, as you're sharing about stress, Krisha, we don't have an off button. When our stress button gets turned on, we go through the stressful situation. Let's say there's a project at work and it's like, oh, stress, stress, stress. Okay, we got it done. It's done. All good. Nope, stress is still going. The body doesn't know that the stress is done. In here, but the body doesn't know. So you're running and living in fight or flight still revving your engine.
Yeah, exactly. Which is where that somatic thing comes in, right? So that's how we got onto this like little definition here
Yeah.
was like, okay, well, where does the somatic work and all of this fit in? And so yes, so this amygdala, this system that's running, even though the situation may not be there anymore, this is also true with trauma. Right? Childhood trauma gets locked in our nervous system. This thing that's all over our entire body runs absolutely everywhere. So if we have something that comes across our radar that may remind us, usually in relationships, right? That remind us of our childhood. Yeah, right. Right. Like,
Yes.
oh, dating this guy, and oh my gosh, does he ever remind me of such and such or whatever, Anyhow, it gets that nervous system gets activated, but when we don't have that awareness of the nerve of somatics and embodiment, that's another word that we used here, then our mind gets activated, and then our mind runs the tape of like whatever it is, like I can't handle this, or why does this always happen to me, or whatever the storyline is, right? That's the mind, and then the mind now is revving the nervous system, and then the nervous system's revving the mind, and like it's just that pew pew pew, and it's so fast, right? And so
Absolutely.
so when we're in that heightened state, that's when, like, obviously awareness, you and I are talking about right now is like, let's become aware that this exists even. Okay.
It's interesting. I love that you're sharing it. Let's become aware because I don't know if I was aware. Like growing up, I do have one situation that it's like, my guides, my angels, whatever we want to say it, I was like being shown something. I can remember being in high school, my best friend Tawny came up to me behind me in gym class. I didn't know she was there. Usually, being very sensitive to energies, I'm aware of where everyone is. I can feel them. Whatever reason, I didn't. She tapped me on the shoulder and I just about hit the roof of the gym. I like was so startled. Dysregulated nervous system times 1,000. And so she laughed, and so I kind of giggled about it. And I remember pausing and thinking, that's not right. Something is really not right. If I'm that startled, I'm a teenager, I wasn't drinking coffee, and I felt that way. And so it was my first time ever having an awareness, but not having a clue what to do, how I'm going to deal with this. But I remember that really clearly, that moment of like how revved up I was and how jittery.
Hmm. Yeah, and you related it to a horse before, right? And horses that energy is very jittery, right?
When a,
Yeah.
when, when a horse is startled.
Startled, yeah. Right? Yeah. So if any of this is resonating with anybody, right? Like that's a dysregulated or heightened nervous system, right? That is not normal. It is not normal. And so let's look at some things like, yeah, like how much coffee are you drinking, right? Because caffeine can play a part, and alcohol too. Like too much alcohol or even a glass of wine a night or something like that, it really messes with our nervous system in that way, right? So if we can remove some of the physical, like the stuff we're eating, right? From that, and now what's left? Okay, we've got work, or we have home situations, or we have trauma, right? and trauma with a capital T or trauma with a little t, whatever, you know what I mean? There's something there that your nervous system now has, you've been imprinted,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're triggered or you're activated, right? And so in that activation, now we talked about like different things that can happen where it's like a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Yeah.
And so in any of those situations, you're not operating out of that parasympathetic. You are operating out of a reaction, and your reaction could be, what the F, man, like then aggression and fighting, or it could
Absolutely.
be like you're just not moving. You're like procrastination. Anyone?
Frozen. Yeah.
You're frozen.
That is a very clear sign too. That procrastination or indecision,
Hmm.
that when that starts coming up, when it hasn't come up in your life, let's say from childhood, but it's happening now, it's interesting to note that that's happening and why.
Mhm.
You're in a dysregulated state. You have these imprints that are running your life. We're 5% conscious in our mind, 95% is in our subconscious. So this 95%, which is a child, the child you, is running your life for you without you even knowing. And you don't even have a second to get in there, to circumvent it. It just happens. It's like, so, like what you were saying before, Krisha, it's quick. This is really fast. So imagine giving keys to a 5-year-old, go drive that car. It's basically what's going
Lamborghini.
on. Yeah,
Go drive a Lambo. Not
go
just a
drive it.
car. Yeah, not just a car, because it could be like a little, tunkety chunk. No, go drive a Lambo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And having that much power at that age and not even being knowledgeable enough to drive the car, not even being legally allowed to. But it's interesting. So that is what's happening. Inner 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever, is in charge of your life for you. The
Yeah.
invisible part, is in charge of you. And it's interesting when one can have that awareness and connect into that in the body, having a regulated nervous system, the change is incredible.
It really is. And we were talking about like layers, right? So I've got a framework that I use that I take people through that I think is really helpful for this. And it's called pattern release coaching. And so there's like five steps to it. So the first one's awareness, which is what we're talking about. And then the second step is observation. And so when I'm working with somebody and they're like, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, I am aware now that I feel like I'm being stabbed in my throat or stabbed in my chest or that my stomach hurts or something. Like now I'm aware that I'm going a million miles a minute. I'm aware of whatever it is.
Yes.
Or I'm aware that I'm frozen. I'm aware that I'm procrastinating, or I'm aware that I'm people pleasing, right? Which is the fawning. I'm aware that I'm people pleasing and all of it, right? Um, and then it's observation. And so then for anyone listening, if you're like, okay, well, what do I do next? It's like, okay, well, just now like become a scientist, right? Put your glasses on, even buy some fake ones from the dollar store or whatever. And just like with your notepad and pen and just be like, I am now observing that, like, oh my gosh, when I sit down in front of my desk at work, all of a sudden I'm feeling this anxiety in my stomach. I'm feeling like I want to throw up. I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that. Okay, I'm observing that when I'm talking to this particular person, that now all of a sudden I'm feeling this weird thing, like it's like observation, and just write down the times, the dates, the scenarios, all that kind of stuff, because what it's going to do is give you like a science log of why or who this is happening with or what's triggering it, like, you know what I mean? And then the next step is clarity, and that usually happens either on your own or in, now you can bring this to therapy, now you can bring this to coaching, right? And just be like, okay, I notice that every time I'm doing this particular thing, I feel like I'm flipping out inside, like, what is this about? And then through, talk therapy or something like that, or a somatic experience with someone, breath work or something like that, then it's like, oh my God, I remember when I was a kid, this thing happened. And now this
Yeah.
scenario is reminding me of that. And then now the dots are connected and you have clarity on why you're doing what you're doing. And then the next stage after that is ownership, where now you're like, okay, now I need to take personal responsibility for not continuing to put myself in that scenario, or having a conversation with that person, or taking a different set of action steps, or whatever it is, right? But it's layers, right? So we've got to get back to awareness, like knowing that you have a nervous system, understanding that it's the amygdala, understanding that there's capital T and small t trauma. And just like having an awareness of where it shows up in your body and how it shows up, and that this even exists, right? And then the end stage of this, not that there's ever an end, a real end, but
There
like,
isn't.
what's that?
There isn't. There isn't an
There
end. You keep
isn't.
going because you keep growing, you keep learning. There's more,
Yeah,
there's layers.
there's layers, right? And so the last step actually is refinement. And so all you're doing is refining, but you're going back to awareness. So this is
Absolutely,
like you're,
absolutely. But it becomes second nature at that point.
yeah,
One has already
exactly.
gone through it. It's like the ease at which, you know, I'm sure as well, just like me, Krisha, like now it's at the point where I'm like, oh, that thing again. Okay, got it. You
Yeah.
know, breathe into it. Let's see what's happening here. And, I love how you share about the layers because that's absolutely how I work with the breath process. The first layer or the first time someone experiences it, they might experience some deep relaxation for the first time ever. I mean, we like to think that we know what relaxed is or relaxation is. We don't. I didn't. And I did yoga like 5, 6 times a week. I still didn't have relax. My nervous system, having my body really relax. And then going to the next layer, maybe in the second or third session, maybe some deeper relaxation, maybe even falling asleep. Oh my goodness, falling asleep. And then maybe some emotions coming up, and then some of the, as we go along in the process, maybe some of those childhood imprints start coming and presenting themselves, right? So layer by layer. And, it sounds like when we're sharing about this, the word that's coming through to me right now is responsibility. Taking responsibility for yourself, which may sound like, oh, I have to take responsibility for myself, like it's such a difficult thing. It's connecting to the power of you, like the ownership of you living who you are with such joy, bliss, and love for you. Incredible, right?
Yeah, it is. And I know that when we are working on this kind of stuff, the ownership part is the hardest part, because we are dealing with a young nervous system, and a nervous system, that part of you that's like, why should I do this? Like, like, whatever, like my parents should have done this for me, or somebody else should be doing this for me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it is the
Absolutely.
hardest part. It's like,
Absolutely. There's resistance, there's contraction. As we open up, we want to contract. That's natural. Um, Further along in the layers, though, that comes.
yeah.
And there's a sense, especially, I believe in every human being, when they go through this journey, there's a sense of pride that happens and really deep love. And at the beginning, of course, why did my parents do this? It's their problem. Of course.
Yeah.
Great. Start there.
Yeah, right.
We
I
all
know.
did,
We
whether we
all,
said it or not. Like I'm sure, in my own case, absolutely. My stepmother, this, my father, my
yeah,
family, of course.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the embodiment, because I asked my clients if they understood what that word meant.
Mm,
And um the definitions were interesting, that they came back with, especially considering there's like such a Christian um component to that word, taking the body of Christ, that it was just this like sort of temporary thing, like you're just embodying something temporarily. But what we're talking about in terms of embodiment in our neck of the woods, and the somatic neck of the woods, is, and I love your definition. In fact, you give your definition and then I'll give mine after.
Well, I don't know what I said before, but embodiment for me, right away I go to the word SOLignment, the breath process, somatic alignment. So it's the mind and the body connected. We can be walking around, as most beings do, as all of us, energy from the neck up. We're not connected. It's like we're walking heads. But when we connect, you plug in. Imagine that, the power in that. So you're unplugged walking around, which pretty good, but connection, incredible. Aligning the body and the mind, living from your body can experience things.
Mm, yeah, that's where sensuality comes in, meaning using your senses.
Absolutely. And there's
Mm,
so much shame, especially North America,
mhm.
around sexuality, the feminine, the divine, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
which is hilarious considering like how obvious it is everywhere.
And
Yeah.
look at movies, television, right? Like, everything that we see. But it's interesting, yeah. But internally, in the body, is where it's carried in a deep place for many. There's shame.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so yeah, embodiment and in the body, it's like becoming, it's like you're becoming safer
Mhm.
for yourself. You're becoming more parasympathetic. You're becoming more aware. You're like it's a becoming more into who you are, and more into your authenticity, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like from those early days of goddess flow to now, like I mean, like I started doing these little dance videos like on Facebook. I would just sort of like record myself dancing on Facebook, and I was so like cringy about it, you know? And now, like on Instagram, it's like pretty much all I do. I have hundreds of them on there, and I'm just like listening to some really awesome music. And then I'm like, I'm going to record myself dancing. And I do it because um, it's so fun and it gives people permission to also like be that free and embodied in themselves, you know? And I have a deeper reason for that too, but and it's just like it, and it is movement, and it's this inspiration of like, let's just move our bodies, and like, who cares? Like, I don't have any formal training or anything like that in dancing. I just love music and I love moving my body, and so I'm gonna do that, you know. So like, yeah, I like your ballerina
Yeah,
example of five rhythms.
absolutely. Yeah, I love that you're sharing these videos because absolutely permission.
Permission, yeah.
There is someone, many, who are watching your videos. And
Hmm.
next thing you know, they have the courage to dance,
Yep.
to go to a goddess flow, to go to a five rhythms, to go to ecstatic dance and just, you know, permission energetically, somatically.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What a beautiful share that you're giving to the world.
Well, thank you, and you as well. And we're at time here. We can just keep talking here.
Go for another
Oh,
5 hours. However,
however,
there's
however,
life to do and things to encounter.
yeah. Um, you have a freebie for us, um, for the listeners here, and it's a beautiful meditation, I think. So then
Inner heart. Yeah, inner heart radiance meditation. It's not a mind meditation, mind and body. You'll do a little bit of breathing in it, connecting to your body. A beautiful way to begin to come home to you.
fantastic. I love that. Thank you. We're going to put that in the show notes. And where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on my website, so kathrynmalek.com, or if you type in serenesoulsynergy.com, that's another way to get to my website. I have a Facebook group as well called Serene Soul Synergy. You can find me on Facebook.
Nice. That's fantastic. Thank you for being here. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I think we're gonna probably do a couple more. We have
Absolutely.
another hot topic that we're going to talk about, that's really important. And so we'll get that booked in. But I really love your energy.
Thank
And yeah, what I love about it is that you have a very soft, it's like a soft pink energy. Um, yeah, it's very soft. And I can tell that you're really safe for people who, maybe do have very deeply unconscious stuff that they're just like really not ready to face, And so when we're talking about that type of stuff, it's really good to do it with someone such as yourself who can hold that kind of space in a physical container, you
you.
know?
Yeah,
Because when the realizations and the insights do start to come out, you want to be held in that. It's like doing
absolutely.
an ayahuasca ceremony and having the shaman there, like it's no different. Like there's just no ayahuasca, it's
Mhm.
breath.
It's
It's the
breath.
same thing. Like you
Someone
still,
that someone that's been there that can hold in that no matter what it is. I always like to say, I've seen and heard pretty much everything, and even if I haven't, I'm open to it.
yeah,
I'll sit in it, I'll ground in it, I'll,
yeah,
be there with you in it. I'll step into whatever it is. And I feel like before I came down, before I came down to this earthly planet, there's many things. I think I signed up for everything. I wanted to heal from everything. Like, did I really go on that whiteboard and click it all off? Yes, I did. And I feel like there was a vow made that I would heal and I would then guide others and assist others in their healing. And it feels deep in me. And it's important and it's something I honor and it's incredible. I get to do this.
yeah. I love that. We get to do this.
Yeah, I've just loved having this chat with you and knowing that you used to live in the city that I'm in and now you're further away. I'm like, oh, we could have gone for tea, we could have hung out, but we still can.
Yeah,
Just a little
yeah.
bit of traveling involved.
Right. Yeah, we just have to get on an airplane. Well, Kathryn, thank you so much for being here and for your free gift and all of your insights and your beautiful energy that you've brought to this conversation. And thank you to you, the listener and watcher of The Dirt and the Divine. Thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions or anything that you want to know, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you'd like to know more about me and how I work with people, please go to my website, krishayoung.com. And if you want to see them dance videos, you can go to my Instagram at the Krisha Young, and you can send me a direct message there. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn and all the places too, so you can just search up my name and you'll find me. Thank you for being here, and I really look forward to having you on another episode, Kathryn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Krisha. My pleasure. It's been an honor.